Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers. I look forward to seeing you guys every Monday and Thursdays. I don't know what I would do without this family. Um, and we are reading through the Bhagavad-gītā, verse by verse, and diving into the meaning, talking about its relevance to our lives. And this podcast has become kind of like a patchwork quilt of just like everybody's reflections and how they're relating to the verses of the Gita and how they're seeing the Gita in real life, how they're seeing the Gita in real life. And it's so helpful. It's helpful to hear from like-minded seekers on the path and to have this community. So I think about many of your guys' shares like through the days and through the weeks, and things will come up and I'll remember, oh, so and so shared something like that. Or so it's really sweet when we can all come together and study and reflect together. So thank you for being on this journey. And today we are going to start with chapter 9. We're finishing the end of chapter 9. We have a few verses left. Today we're starting with 32. So chapter 9, text 32 is where we're starting. But before we go there, Shakti, can you say our prayers for us?
Yes, of course. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Kara Mayam Dandati Sva Pandatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakant Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Garungi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Saru Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I will share my screen and we will get right into chapter 9, verse 32. Stella, when you're ready, do you want to read this for us?
Sure. Mam hi partavya pasritya ye pisyu papayonaya striyo vasyas tata sudras te piyanti param gatin. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of low birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, this verse can sound a little bit uncomfortable at first. And we're going to really dive into that because it lists things that we relate to, right? Like, wait, I'm a woman. So what is this verse saying? You know, so we're going to dive into that. But before we do that, we have a scholar among us. I don't know if a scholar is how he would categorize himself, but he's very learned, and and does a lot of work with the BBT on translations of the Gita. And this is Kalachandji, our beloved Kalachandji, and he has a few things to share around this.
Thanks, Varṇa. Yeah, not at all a scholar. But anyway, as you might or might not know, Srila Prabhupada composed the Gita orally, speaking into a dictaphone. And then the recording would be transcribed, and then the text would be edited for publication. So I won't get into the issues of editing, but for this verse, a little context might help our understanding. So please feel free to interrupt me, just shout out, because I won't notice like the hands up and stuff if I'm not clear or if you have any questions at all. So I've put in our chat, there is the original transcript of Srila Prabhupada's dictation. And then there's 4 English editions. There were 2 in 1968, one in 1972, and 1983. And I would just say, from my personal perspective, that first 1968 one, that's the one I read. That's the first Gita I read. And it had all the verses, but the purports were abridged. Not all the purports, and some of them were shorter. Macmillan, I first read it, it was like 13 years old or so when it first came out, from Macmillan. I just bought it in a bookstore at Brentano's on 8th Street in New York City. And there are plans to publish one more, a final edition from the BBT and the GBC, which is pretty far along actually in progress. So for the last 5 years, until we finished in November, I was serving on a panel reviewing all the edits of the different editions and considering some new proposals and helping to finalize the text. And that's like a whole story in itself, which sometime I could talk about. There were many, many, many edits over the years, but even though the ones to this verse are mostly just in phrasing and punctuation, I think they're maybe the most significant in the entire Gita, in the whole book. And the resulting text, as Radha is saying, it's really elicited strong reactions from readers, including, I think, quite a few being turned off from the Gita entirely and Krishna consciousness. And I saw this happening working with young student readers in the university. So I've put all 4 versions in the chat, along with, I didn't put this yet, a facsimile, along with a facsimile of the here we go, 83 manuscript, because it has a word-by-word translation. So, the Sanskrit to English, word by word. And also I've listed a proposed restored text. When I say restored, going back to the beginning. So Srila Prabhupada's original transcription, right, names 3 groups, as you can see: women, businessmen, and those born in a low family. And he says that any of them can approach the supreme destination. And the 68 editions have only slight differences, like, O son of Prita, anyone who will take shelter in me, whether a woman or a merchant or born in a low family, can yet approach the supreme destination. In the 1973 version, a 4th group, right, Sudras, is added, which, and you can see in the facsimile if you want, it's in the Sanskrit, but it had been left out of the previous translation. But much more important, now there is only one main group, right? They of lower birth. And all the others are included in that group. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, right? And here they are, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Sudras, workers, can approach the supreme destination. So it's a big difference, right? And our 1983 edition, right, it's almost the same, except approach is now attain. So not only can the groups approach the supreme destination, they can actually attain it. And that too is consistent with the Sanskrit yanti, go to it, right? So it's not that they are going to it, they go to it, they can attain it. So that's the situation. And I just, if I might, my understanding of the original, and there was quite a bit, there were hours of discussion about this on the panel. It was a week was devoted entirely to this verse. But my understanding, after hearing from other scholars, is that the three, or that became four groups, all face particular challenges in their spiritual paths, right? Depending on the group, social and family status, roles, and expectations, right? For all, and especially women, focus on material gain, illiteracy, lack of education, extreme poverty, among, many others. I think, childbirth and motherhood. Yeah, Shakti.
I'm just wondering if if part of the revisions had something, because it can be taken sometimes in a way when they say those of low birth, and then so then you're a woman but you're a lower birth. Is that partly, was that
Well,
taken?
that would seem to be what the edit says.
Yeah.
I can't, it is one person doing it. In that case, it was, um, um, I'm just forgetting the devotee's name who was editing Srila Prabhupada first. This is before Jayadvaita Swami came on board, who did that original translation. And there are many things throughout the Gita that are like different, maybe not quite as like significant or blatant as this, but I can't say like what was in his mind when he was saying it, and there was no commentary on how he did it. But it's very possible that, as you're saying, like that was in his head. That is what he expressed. But it's not what Srila Prabhupada expressed, at first. Um, and here, like Krishna is, I think, assuring Arjuna that these people too, like you women too, hallelujah, can achieve the supreme destination. You know, and I think one could say that because of the challenges the groups face, it's even more to your credit, to be able to do so. But there's no suggestion at all of there being lesser or less qualified. It's just not there until that edit happened. So anyway, finally, I'm still limited, by a non-disclosure agreement, but I've also shared what I'll call a proposed text, which I am quite hopeful will appear in the final edition. And it's gotten a lot of agreement. I don't know if its official status, though, so I just humbly request that you not share it in print or on social media. It's just there for our discussion. And the proposal is, O son of Prita, anyone who takes shelter in me, whether low-born, a woman, a Vaisha merchant, or a Sudra worker, can approach, I think I might have gotten that wrong. It maybe can attain the supreme destination. So that's
Wow.
it. I just wanted to, I hope that can give us a little bit of context and be maybe a little reassuring, as well. Thank you.
Wow.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Kalachandji. I really appreciate how much thought and and work and heart goes into these translations. And like you said, you spent a board, like a whole committee spent a week just on this verse,
Yeah.
just
We met for
understanding how sensitive it is.
I'm sorry, we met for 2 hours every other week for 5 years. It took almost a year just to come up with the principles guiding the editing.
Wow. Wow. We are so fortunate, and we benefit from this. So, wow. Thank you. And thank you for your service, Kalachandji. That was
Okay.
really a
Thank you so
beautiful
much. I'm still
explanation.
pinching myself. I was like the answer to what's wrong with this picture. It was like an incredible experience for me. And I'm not saying this in humility. I was nowhere near like the level of these other, they were all gurus and Sanskritists. I mean, really, it was such an amazing experience for me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
I knew my commas. So let's say. I was like the language person, so I fortunately wasn't expected to know anything.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks. So yeah, let's talk around that a little bit more. Because I have some things. I think it might even be kind of similar to what you were saying. Oh, Narayani.
Hare Krishna.
Narayani. Hare
Just wanted
Krishna.
to share something that Banu Nandini, some of you may know,
Yeah.
that she once shared in a chat in a group when we discussed this verse, and maybe I'll just read it. It says the Sanskrit verse, no, the Sanskrit in the verse, Papa Yonaha, and Srila Prabhupada translates as born of a lower family. In a lecture, Srila Prabhupada himself says that Papa Yo means those who have got little facility for advancing themselves in spiritual life. In the old times, when the Gita was spoken, women could not attend to studying the Vedas themselves, nor Shudras or Vaishyas. The studies of the Vedas and performing rites and rituals was reserved for Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, and they were supposed to take care of women, Shudras, Vaishyas. And then she said somewhere later that basically the most important part of that verse is that anybody can attain Krishna. And I mean, yeah, I'm just repeating it, but it is a really nice explanation that people should not get hung up on one word when the main message is anybody can attain Krishna. Just want to
Yes.
share that.
Yeah. That's beautiful and perfect. And that's exactly where we're going here too. This cultural backdrop that, in traditional Indian society, there was two main forms of religious life that were considered like serious spiritual paths. So there was the Karmakanda path, which was like ritualistic, results-oriented religion. It required strict purity, rules, precise timing, access to resources, detailed knowledge of ritual procedures. So that was one path, and then the other was Jnana, which is like philosophical and speculative inquiry. This demanded like education, the ability to sit with these abstract metaphysical questions for long periods of time. So these were the two paths at the time. And the problem was that just like you all are saying, people whose lives revolved around like raising families, farming, trade, manual labor, these paths were just often unrealistic for them. They didn't have the time, they didn't have the training, they didn't have the social access to perform these elaborate rituals or this engage in this like long philosophical analysis. So within those systems, these people then were often seen as spiritually underqualified. But the key point here is this judgment applied to just these two paths, not to bhakti. And this is what Krishna is overturning here. Human society has always been diverse. People start from different places. Not everyone has the same temperament, education, lifestyle. And the idea behind the varna system was to describe these natural differences in qualities and inclinations, not to measure someone's worth or spiritual potential. Right? Because some people are naturally drawn towards study, towards restraints, towards contemplation. And if you have those qualities, it is easier to practice karma or jnana practices, especially for them. But others who are more immersed in work or family life, service, or just like surviving, it's not quite the same. But this doesn't make them lesser. It just means that those traditional paths weren't designed with them in mind. And what happened in India is that over time, this social framework like hardened and society became stratified not just by inclination but by caste and gender. And at the time, originally the intention was social stability and mutual support. As leaders get corrupt, and the Gita itself suggests that this is happening, the leaders of the air, they're spiritually lacking. As that happens, what happens is like lower castes and women are often excluded from even certain religious practices altogether. So this is like the cultural backdrop to what's going on here. But bhakti, it changes everything. It changes everything because bhakti doesn't depend on social position, on education, on ritual precision. It depends on just the sincerity of the heart. Like that's it. No gatekeepers, no prerequisites, just a genuine desire to connect with Krishna. That's the only prerequisite for bhakti. So even the cultural backdrop doesn't even necessarily matter. It's good for us to have context of where this is coming from. But at the end of the day, just like Narayani said, the point is that there's no prerequisite to practice bhakti except a sincere heart. So just like what Stella said on the thread, you can even have a baby and practice bhakti. I know it's hard. I don't have the time to sit down and read like I used to. I used to spend hours a day reading. I'm not able to do that anymore. So I see how, these things that family life, it can make it difficult to really sit and focus. But in bhakti, you can do other things, right? You can raise your child as a service to God. And in that way, you're still connecting with God. And in a, like we always say, like an elevator ride up in connecting with God. I don't have to sit for hours and read. I like to, but I can still connect with God just the same, if not even more, by doing my work, doing my duties as a service to God and always remembering God. And so that's the process of bhakti, and that's what this verse is telling us. And thank you so much for all of your shares and kind of pulling this together. Because the big point here is that any soul who's received a human body is extremely fortunate. Okay? The human form is extremely rare. Out of millions of species, this is the body that allows for self-realization. And so whether you're male or female, wealthy, poor, educated or not, every human being has spiritual potential. So that's what Krishna's not saying some people can't realize God. He's saying just the opposite. And that's the beauty of bhakti. This is the beauty of bhakti, What do you think, Aaron?
Thank you all so much. I'm so glad we don't, sidestep these really important conversations. And you really do allow us to address them head on. It's so interesting. I've realized that, it's like what you just said, it's the opposite of how it can be taken as the opposite of what was intended. And it's not funny because I do think a lot of people are turned off by this, but comical in a way that it's like Krishna says, even women can do this. And people are like, what? How come? What do you mean by that? And it's just like, no, he means even women, even sudras, even this. So I feel like obviously the context is so important. I've definitely struggled with this verse and with some others personally, and I think for some other commentary, it's like, oh, this isn't a purport or this is quoting somebody else, but this is Krishna talking. And when it's like, oh, but Krishna said that, it is hard to swallow because so just to Kalachandji, the importance of the work that you and that whole panel are doing, I didn't even ever think oh, but it was just a person who edited, the translation from the beginning, because it's been hard for me to sit with oh my, but Krishna said this, God said this. And forgetting how many people are involved in getting this, right, this book into print. And then the other way that I've really struggled with it, and I, kind of continue to, is when I think about uh, sharing this book, especially with somebody like my mom, who is super supportive, and everything I've shared with her about Bhakti, she's very supportive of. But she's also, was grew up in the 60s and is very, you know, very staunch feminist. And I don't want, both to turn her off from, any of this, but also for her to judge me for, um, you know, like thinking that like I'm blindly accepting that, like, you know, some of these things. So it's just something that I've, thought about and struggle with and talked to my, mentor about. And I just wanted to share here, and not that I have an answer to it, but just wanted to share.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Understanding the cultural context, the cultural backdrop really helps. And then understanding the essence of the verse, just like you said. And when we can kind of wrap our head around those two things, it makes it much less threatening because we understand that it's yeah, just like you said, saying the opposite of what we think or how we feel sometimes when we first approach it. Thank you. Shakti.
Thank you for letting me share. I am in a Srimad Bhagavatam group on Tuesday nights, and uh, the he's a grihasta now, but he was a brahmachari, and so that's kind of leading the path for us. But he does say in many instances, we're starting in Canto 1, like literally from chapter 1, but we're a few text 1, but we're like a few texts in already. And he does say in some of the passages that we're reading, we can put they here, or we can put, everybody here, because he wants to make sure that, that we're not like kind of pulling what do you mean about women? Like,
Mm.
no, he's saying women have babies and families, and they're doing so many things that sometimes they don't have the time. They don't have, whereas even in the Jewish religion, like the men go to temple and they do these stuff and they stay there and they will pray for a very long time while the women take care of cooking and the 15 kids and all of that.
Mhm.
So it's very, very common. And like Stella wrote, like it's a very egotistical way. I mean, there is a very like open your heart and just listen to the nectar,
Mm.
right? Forget the they, this, that, she, him. And I know it can be hard. I never really had an issue with it, but in my Bhagavatam group, he does also kind of what Kalachandri kind of did. And you're doing something completely different, but he does also make sure that in our group, he wants people that are new to understand that Prabhupada this is coming from an age way back when, and we're in a different age now, and he really means like all of us, right?
Mm.
And whatever the verses that we're reading. So I love that. I love that I love that we're having this conversation, but I love that we're doing this because that brings more people to Krishna consciousness, right? More
Mm.
devotees, more love, more nectar. Yeah, more of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Shakti. A beautiful thing too, Prabhupada, he would often point out that while women at the time may not have always been encouraged towards this philosophical analysis, he would point out that they're often more naturally devotional, more faithful, more emotionally vested, more inclined towards relationship. And bhakti is all about relationship. So in some ways, like you could take this and say, oh, this means that women are less qualified. It's so he would say things that, it's sometimes it could be easier for women in the Bhakti path because they are more emotionally invested and they're more inclined towards relationship. And and if we know if emotion is directed towards the temporary world, it can get us into a lot of trouble. It can bind us. But if that same emotion is directed towards Krishna, it will liberate us. And this is why we often see more women attending religious programs, kirtans, devotional gatherings, because bhakti takes whatever we already have, this emotion, this faith, this longing, and it redirects it towards Krishna. So it's beautiful in that way. And in that way, I mean, women have so much potential for spiritual life. Nancy, what are your thoughts?
Thank you so much, everyone. Everything that has been said, reinforces my thoughts. But it's interesting because I have the 1970 edition of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So when people would read a verse, and I'm reading this in my thing, I'm like, what are they saying? I really like this version. So somebody suggested, because my version only goes up to chapter 10, Canto 10, chapter 13. And I didn't even realize that it only went that far. And I was like, now what do I do? And it was like, oh, get another version. It's like, I don't know. This is my version. I love this version. I have a lot of vested interest in this. And Krishna, and I'll admit to this group, I have written in my book. I have underlined, I have defined things because I couldn't understand, what does this mean? And I bring out for me this deep love of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyway, these things, hands on hips, what do you mean kind of thing. At times I would get that. But I found that when I read many of the stories in the Bond of Love, I realized the special relationship that Prabhupada had to women and children, contrary to what a strict, unemotional view of his translations might give you, like maybe there were language barriers. I would think this way too. Maybe there were translational language barriers sometimes. I got to the point where if something bothered me, I would instead say, maybe this is about me. Maybe there is something that I need to recognize in this, and let me not just take one verse and now warp my thinking just around that verse. Let me look at all the verses in the chapter or whatever to really get the flavor. In fact, I don't see this as ever being, my version is just like, yeah, everybody, as Narayani said, everybody is open now. You are only allowed to even hear this if you are a Brahmana and you are a man and hear, no, I want you to know anybody can attain Krishna. Such an important message. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Nancy. I really liked when you said, maybe this is about me, if this is offending me, like in other words, like maybe this is actually my problem that I'm offended by this. Or this means something more about me than it actually means about the text or about what's being said here. So introspective and real. Thank you. Bava Mai. Welcome. It's good to see you, Bava Mai.
Hi, greetings, everyone. I was just listening to this conversation. I came in a little late, so I didn't get a chance to hear Kala Chandji. But this is really good stuff, I just wanted to add my little piece because, of course, I'm in a woman body right now. So, but I felt very, very fortunate when I read this, we come up in a day, I'm coming up in a day and age where it is a patriotic society, you know, and even understanding how things were, um, even, you know, during that time, it was still a patriotic society, you know. And not to say that's just the way things always have been, but just to have, I think it was, I'm sorry, I forget who said it, but someone was saying like, "Oh, Krishna said that." I think it was Aaron. Like,
Aaron, yeah.
you know, Krishna said it, but it made me feel very, very fortunate that, you know, Krishna stood up for women. You know, even women. You know, it made me feel like I'm in a woman body. I got this. You know, I'm included. You know, also during the time when I was reading through the Bhagavatam, and I think it's in the first canto when Vyas is speaking with Narad, and you know he's like expressing his remorse, and Narad's like asking him like, didn't you even write the Mahabharata? Like, why are you not satisfied? He's like, yeah, you know, I wrote them for these people that's less qualified, and just kind of like he gave us this spoonful of medicine packed in, well, encased in juice, you know, just so it'd be attractive to everybody. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm a woman, I'm less intelligent, and I love Mahabharata, you know. I didn't see it as offensive. I think over time and beginning to read with other people, it kind of brought that out. Well, not out of me, but it just kind of made me realize that maybe somebody would find this offensive. But, you know, it is all in perspective. You know, if that's what the vision is, or something that you're influenced by, is the um, fact that you have a woman body, or, you know, if that's something that might be sensitive to you. But for me, it felt very empowering. It made me feel like, you know, they're like Christians doing these things specifically so nobody can try to pick on women. This was our safeguard, you know. It felt like a safety net. Like nobody could boot us out ever. This is our access pass right here. Christians stating it. You know, it's in black and white. So, you know, it's etched in stone as far as I was concerned because it's in an ancient text. And I just really, really appreciated that. And it made me even so much more happy to have this female body. So thanks for letting me share.
Wow. Wow, thank you. Thank you. I feel like I was kind of like you. I was never offended by these comments either. And I was always like first in my class, you know, I have nuclear engineering degree. Intelligence was never a problem for me, but I also never really identified with it. You know, I was just talking to the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the Bob Cohen there yesterday, and he was sharing all the things that they do, and you know, they're scientists and they're merging. It's amazing work that they're doing, by the way. But even in my thought was like, I don't really identify as a scientist, even though I like have all that education. It's like it doesn't really mean anything to me. So even if somebody met me and thought I was less intelligent because I'm a woman, it's like I don't really care because I don't really identify as like this super intelligent philosophical person. I would care if somebody met me and didn't think I had a heart. You know, that would affect me more so than like it's like doesn't even mean anything. Having knowledge, okay, so what? You can still be completely miserable and a jerk, even if you have a lot of knowledge. Like it doesn't mean anything in terms of the bigger picture of life, you know? So it's it never meant anything to me, but thank you. Nice share. Kalachanji.
Just first, what Baba Maya Prabhu said is so beautiful and true. It's just like so great. Um, but also, I was thinking though about what Nancy said about Srila Prabhupada is, you know, also like really true, and I think very inspiring to read, um, like the books about Yamuna Devi, in particular, and Giriraj Swami's books on dancing white elephants. There, he really goes into detail about Yamuna Devi's relationship with Srila Prabhupada and hearing from her, and also how that changed over time, in particular when they went back to India. and she was no longer able to sit by his side, right in front of him and listen to everything and raise her hand all the time. Anyway, those I think are very informative and inspiring. Um, I also just wanted to mention that, I worked at the university. I did a Gita class for maybe 20 years with students, and they didn't know anything about the Gita. They didn't have a personal interest in things. And unlike, all of you, all of us, we read the Gita with an open heart. They were like very objective and just, and always questioning. And, so these 20-year-olds, more or less, and they were very sensitive to these kind of things, and it very easily turned them on or off when somebody is coming to the Gita. I just, these are really super important and very live issues. That's for talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, College Hunty.
Also, I'm sorry, one more thing. Also,
Yeah.
like sometimes people can choose their own texts. I mean, I love it, having one's own Gita and knowing, like, yeah, we become so attached to them. When I was teaching, I gave the students two Gitas, one Srila Prabhupada's Gita, and also, I don't if anyone knows Stephen Mitchell, has a Bhagavad-gītā in poetry form, and it's gorgeous. It's so beautiful, and it's very impersonalist. And everything we read both versions of it. The students read both versions, and they each presented and responded to the verses and presented them in class. And in each time, they had the choice of which book to read from. And at the beginning of the semester, they loved this other book. It's beautiful. It's like so poetic, and it puts everything in very acceptable terms. And they found, Srila Prabhupada is explaining he could get heavy sometimes and all like this. But as the semester went on and they started to look at it, they were like, wait a minute, this doesn't quite make sense on this side. And by the end of the semester, they were almost only reading from Srila Prabhupada. And unanimously at the end of the semester, they chose that as their Gita. So I think people really are able to, make those choices. And it's wonderful that we get to have those choices.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. So nice. Yeah, so just to zoom out even a little bit more here, this section of the Gita is just really emphasizing how accommodating Bhakti is. Bhakti is so accommodating, especially when it comes to our very real vulnerability to messing up. And on the devotional path, our goal, we know it's not perfect self-mastery right from the start. The real goal is absorption in Krishna. And if our senses are too uncontrolled, this can interrupt that absorption. So self-control does matter, but the point is we don't need to be fully self-controlled before we can connect with Krishna. We don't have to be living in a temple where we're dedicating 24/7 to chanting and hearing. Most of us, we're not battling our senses 24/7, but we still have moments, even small moments where we can pause, we can choose something differently, we can turn towards Krishna. And bhakti is practiced in those moments. Bhakti is practiced in those moments. And when we use whatever level of self-control we do have to connect with Krishna, something beautiful happens. And this applies even, I've talked about this before, like motherly duties. I don't have a lot of time to commit to my spiritual life, but while I'm nursing, while my baby's nursing, I can chant, or while I'm cleaning the kitchen, I can listen to a class. It's just whatever moments we do have, we can try to slide bhakti in. And what happens is by Krishna's mercy, we begin to taste a higher kind of satisfaction. And through this connection with God, through Krishna's mercy, we'll gain this clarity, this wisdom, this inner strength. This is the practice of bhakti. We don't have to sit with our head in a book all day. We can, but just if we can just connect with God sincerely, this connection, he'll give us this clarity, this wisdom, this inner strength. And that higher taste will purify us and expand our capacity. It's like kind of amazing. I was just talking to a student yesterday, and she was asking me if I had done Chitta cleanse, which I think is an amazing. This is a Veda SARS program. I think it's incredible, amazing. I actually haven't done it, but I know a lot about it through just being friends with him. But I told her, I haven't, unfortunately, it hasn't fit in my schedule, but I have so much faith in the holy name. I feel like if we just chant sincerely, if we can just, if we could just connect with God sincerely, our hearts will be purified. And not that those other things aren't important or have a place. They absolutely do. I would still love to do it sometime if my schedule would allow. But just chanting the holy name, we underestimate the potency of this practice, chanting God's names, because this is direct association with God. And God is the all pure, is the purest of the pure. He just through this connection, we're just like plugging into us to a light source, and it can just transfer that electricity to us. It just transfers, and we gain this clarity, this wisdom, this inner strength from that connection. This is the practice of bhakti. So sometimes it doesn't, self-control doesn't come first. We don't always start from a place where we have all this time and capacity for bhakti, but it will grow from our connection with God. He'll give it to us. And if we use whatever time we have, whatever level of self-control we have, whatever level of discipline we have, wherever we are, bhakti accommodates you wherever you are. And what will happen is just that association with God, it will breed, it will increase our capacity. It will increase our self-control. It will increase our discipline. You'll see even your life, even things that like you were too busy to practice, all of a sudden you'll have time and you'll be like, wow, how did that happen? This Krishna will do this from this connection with him. So this is the practice. This is the practice of bhakti. And if we go in and we expect things to be perfect at the beginning, we expect to have all the time in the world, we expect to be perfectly disciplined, perfectly austere. This can be bad for our practice, because these standards, they're so unrealistic. We may think like bhakti's nice, but it's probably exaggerated. Or we might think we're hopeless, or we get discouraged by those thoughts. But Krishna's saying, instead of seeing our imperfections as proof that we don't belong, we can see them as invitations to humility and reminders of how deeply we need Krishna's purifying grace. And with that attitude, we can practice bhakti honestly. We can connect with Krishna wholeheartedly whenever we can. And if we stumble or we feel weak, we don't quit. We stay gentle, we stay patient, we stay steady. And this is how bhakti works in real life. And this is why it's available to anybody. Because you just have to start from wherever you are with whatever you have. And if you have a sincere heart, Krishna will just widen that. Whatever level of self-mastery you have, whatever obstacles are in your life, if you have a sincere heart, Krishna will take care of that, and he'll give you more time. He'll give you more wisdom, more clarity, more understanding to practice bhakti sincerely. This is how it works. We're just like plugging into an outlet. And once we do that, the electricity will flow through. And it's not because of our own effort. It's just Krishna will do this for us. So by keeping our hearts turned towards Krishna, while we're still, engrossed in the world, doing whatever it is that we have to do with whatever capacity we have, Krishna will clean us from the inside out. So here again, Krishna's point is not some people are inferior. What he's saying is that no one is disqualified. So even if someone has limitations, even if their lifestyle doesn't support ritualism or philosophy, even if society would count them out, even if they're in jail, whatever it is, Bhakti overrides all of that. So this verse, it's not supporting discrimination, it's dismantling it. And after this we'll get into in the next class. Krishna's turning to Arjuna and saying, if even those who were considered unlikely candidates can attain perfection through devotion, then what about you? That's the glory of bhakti. It's like once you take shelter, wherever you started, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. There's no qualification. Just a sincere heart, and Krishna will do the rest. Krishna will do the rest. It's magic. So what do you think, Shakti?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to echo, like, I've been in Krishna consciousness probably for 20 years, about 20 years. And I never felt that Krishna was like, she's really not that intelligent. Like, I always felt he was all about my intention, my service, my devotion, my heart. That was it. And when you're right, when I'm chanting, I'm connecting to him in a way, and I feel like I'm conversating with him, and he's telling me, I love you, you are special. Like I don't feel like I never felt that ever. Even when reading all the different books, I never looked at it that way, and I guess it's like I guess it's, yeah, it's like hard, I guess, maybe for people that aren't so connected to. I'm such an emotional heart person. Like I live out of my heart. And so for me, it was sort of like, it was like literally that connection. And I always felt that. And I'm just like hearing this talk today, everyone said so many things that I'm so grateful. But I'm also grateful that I'm having the thought process that I'm having, which is my heart, my intention. And so that is allowing me to really stay close to Krishna each and every day.
Mhm. Yes. Beautiful. Perfect. There's no material prerequisite to practice bhakti. If you're smarter, good for you. It's not going to make you better at bhakti. It's not going to make you worse, but there's no material prerequisite. It's all about the heart. And to the degree that we make it about those things, we're just covered with material consciousness. And that's okay, but we'll suffer. We'll suffer because we'll get caught up in this comparison game. We'll start chasing things like recognition, fame, whatever it be, whatever we want to master, this material energy. And when we do that, we get far away from God because God just wants our heart. God, relationship with God is really our objective in this life. And to the degree that we get distracted by material accolades or material opulences, we'll suffer. And Krishna's just reassuring us. So it's like, don't even let the wording of this verse be a detour for your spiritual life, because that has no bearing. It just doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things, in the grand goal of what we're going for. But even better than that, it doesn't even mean what many would interpret it to mean. So I'm maybe not better than that, but yeah, even broader than that, a broader point than that. So anyway, does anybody, Kalachandri, do you want to share any final thoughts here with us today?
No, beautiful. Like, what can I say after that? That was perfect.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and doing this journey together. Really, it means so much to all of us. And if you're not on our live chat thread and you want to be, so we can stay in touch, let me know. Send me a message and we'll put you on the live, because we're a family. We're a family here and we're all inclusive. So whoever, I don't know if that's the right word for this, but whoever wants to be part of our family, we welcome you in with open arms. So thank you all. Thank you. And I'll see you on Monday.